Members, it's time, and we have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. There is one item for discussion today. Before the meeting, the administration submitted paper number ECI bracket 2025-26-1 to members for circulation. This paper contains information on changes to the approved directorate establishment since 2022 and the changes that will be caused to the establishment arising from this discussion item today. If I remind members that if there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to the discussion item today, please disclose the nature of the interest before speaking in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure. I'd also like to draw members' attention to Rule 84 of the Rules of Procedure on the voting requirement where there is a direct pecuniary interest. The discussion item today is paper numbers EC 25-26-1. Proposed creation of creation of one time-limited supernumerary post of Chief Engineer D1 in the Civil Engineering and Development Department with immediate effect upon approval of the Finance Committee for a period of about 5 years up to the 31st of March 2020 to continue the implementation of the development, recreation and conservation initiatives in Lantau and the nearby outlying islands, and B, merger of the existing Sustainable Lantau Office and the South Development Office into the proposed South Development and Sustainable Lantau Office with immediate effect upon approval of the Finance Committee, and revising and redistributing the duties and responsibilities of the directorate posts of the two original offices so as to streamline the organisational structure, achieve synergy, and optimise the use of manpower resources for the promotion of sustainable development of Lantau, Hong Kong Island and West Kowloon, and the conservation work of Lantau in future. The administration consulted the panel on development on the 25th of March 2025. Attending the meeting today, we have Mr. David Lam, Under Secretary for Development, Mr. Johnny Chan, Deputy Secretary for Development, Mr. Terence Lam, Principal Assistant Secretary for Development, Mr. Michael Fong, Director of Civil Engineering and Development, Mr. Jackie Wu, Project Manager, South CDD, Mr. Raymond Yip, Deputy Head of the Sustainable Lantau Office, CDD, and Mr. Edmund Chan, Deputy Project Manager, CEDD. Now, I first invite Dr. Low Wai Kwok, Chairman of the panel on development, to brief us on the discussion of the panel. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. At its meeting on the 25th of March 2025, the panel on development discussed the administration's proposal to A, retain one time-limited supernumerary post of Chief Engineer D1 in the Sustainable Lantau Office, SLO, under the Civil Engineering and Development Department, CEDD, for a period of about 5 years up to the 31st of March 2030. And B, to merge the existing SLO and the South Development Office, SDO, into the proposed South Development and Sustainable Lantau Office, SDSLO, and to revise and redistribute the duties and responsibilities of the directorate posts of the two original offices. The panel supported the submission of the proposal to the Establishment Subcommittee for consideration. Members welcomed the deletion of 5 supernumerary directorate posts as scheduled on the 31st of March 2025 after the administration has reviewed and redistributed the workload of the SLO and SDO. Members also supported the proposal to retain one time-limited supernumerary post of Chief Engineer and merge the two original offices. They considered that the proposal could streamline the organizational structure and achieve synergy, as well as optimize the use of manpower resources. In the course of discussion, members inquired about the possible saving in staff costs per annum at CEDD after the implementation of the staffing proposal. Members were very much concerned about the progress of the various Lantau development projects such as the Sunny Bay Reclamation, South Lantau Eco-Recreation Corridor, etc., as well as the latest implementation of works projects such as public infrastructure works and traffic improvement works in support of the development of the West Kowloon Cultural District. The administration has already responded to the concerns and to the questions and concerns of members at the meeting. So that is the report as the chairman of the panel on development. Mr. Chairman, I personally very much support the staffing proposal. I commend the Development Bureau and the CDD for conducting a pragmatic review of their establishment. So it is actually rather rare that government department has proposed a merger to save manpower resources, so I commend that. Thank you, Dr. Loy Kwok. Now I invite Mr. Lam, Undersecretary, to take us through the paper. Thank you. Now we would like to seek members' support for the establishment proposal. Now, we are talking about recreating a post because the post will lapse on the 31st of March this year, has lapsed actually, and so we want to recreate the post for a period of 5 years up to the 31st of March 2030. That is the Chief Engineer, South and Sustainable Lantau 6. And we're talking about development projects such as recreation, development, recreation and conservation initiatives in Lantau, in particular in Lamma Island. So we also propose to merge the Sustainable Lantau Office and the South Development Office into the South Land Development and Sustainable Lantau Office. We also would like to redistribute the duties and responsibilities of the directorate posts of the two original offices. Now, the SLO was established on the 1st of December 2017. There were 8 director posts, 6 time-limited ones, and the post elapsed on the 1st of April. So there are now 2 directorate officers, that is the Deputy Director, D2, and D1 Chief Engineer. They now lead the work of the SLO. And then we have reviewed the workload of the different units and offices under the CDD, and we propose to merge the SLO and the SDO because in the past few years, a few of the major projects in South Lantau are near completion. So we would like to merge the 2 offices, and then we could be more efficient in taking forward our work. It will also optimize the use of manpower resources. But then in Lantau and Lamma Island, there are various development and conservation projects. Now, SLO actually has a shortage of staff. If we do not recreate some of the 6 posts, we won't be able to cope with the workload. That's why, after review, we believe we need to retain a time-limited supernumerary D1 post, chief engineer post, that is, to carry on with the work. This post holder will continue to take forward development, recreation, and conservation initiatives in Lantau, and we are conducting expression of interest exercise now. And also, there will be hiking trails and other recreational facilities, as well as improvement works in Mui War and so on. So, after merger, the South Development and Sustainable Lantau Office will have 184 non-directorate posts. That's a reduction of 12 posts compared to the 2 original offices. So that's all by way of briefing. I like to invite views and questions from members. Now 6 members is asked to speak. I'll read out 7. Chairman Kong Tan Ka Piu, Dr. Tan Yue Hong, Mr. Chen Yong, Mr. Shanghai Long, Mr. Perry Yu, and Mr. Dennis Leung. 5 minutes each first. Dr. Chairman Kong. Thank you. I support this proposal because originally there are 14 directorates posts and 196 directorate posts, and so now there are just 5 directorate posts and there's a reduction of 5 directorate posts and 12 non-director posts. That's a saving of manpower resources. So I think other departments ought to learn to do the same in streamlining the organization structure. I'm just asking whether there is room for further compression of the structure, so that we could reduce further directorate and under-direct posts. Now, CDD has 55 directorate posts. These are permanent posts. And then there are 9 directorate time-limited supernumerary posts. So is there room to further reduce the number? And then chief engineers, usually the post is renewed every 3 or 4 years, but this time it's for the period of 5 years. What's the reason? And then tile improvement works are not included under the purview of this new post, but there's another post taking up the project. What's the reason? Because tile improvement works have already taken 15 years, and phase 3 project, what is the scale, how big is it, and how long will it take to complete phase 3? So 3 questions. First question: when we proposed to merge the 2 offices, the department has looked at the workload of other offices to see whether there's room to further reduce the establishment. We do that regularly because we need to make good use of resources. Now, at the CDD, there are other offices with heavy workload, and they're led by directorate staff. For example, the North and the West office, they're responsible for the Northern Metropolis project. And then there's also the Civil Engineering office that's responsible for site formation for different public housing estate projects and works at Long Ku Tan. And then the office responsible for Cheung Kwan O development and Kowloon East projects. So after review, to be honest, we are now reducing 5 directorate posts. It is actually a rather major exercise. That's because we have already given very careful thought to a second question: why 5 years and not 3 years? Well, actually, we have to consider the works involved and how long it will take to complete the work. So when we consider the period for a supernumerary post, now we're talking about the South Lantau Eco Recreation Corridor and works in Lamma Islands, and then with the various conservation initiatives, they'll be completed gradually up to 2030. So that's why we believe 5 years is an appropriate period for the post holder to complete all these projects. And then also we'll review whether there's need to keep the post after 5 years. For Tai O, we have started phase 2 improvement works in 2023. That is, we building bridges, footbridges to improve accessibility, and to beautify the environment, to make the place more attractive as a tourist destination or visitor destination. And then we have to look at the priorities of different various projects before we decide on the time frame for phase 3. Thank you. Mr. Bill Tang, I support this proposal. So it's about streamlining the structure and optimizing manpower resources, but there's a technical issue. For the South Development and Sustainable Lantau Office, the South Development Office is actually has been taking up work on the 3 urban squatter areas. My understanding is for the East Office is to take up projects in Kai Tak and Anderson Road. But how come all of a sudden Ao Chi Wan Village is in Wong Tai Sin, Chok Yun United Villages is in Wong Tai Sin? That's fine. But Cha Ko Ling Village is definitely in the eastern part of Kowloon. How come it's not brought under the South Development Office What is the communication mechanism about within the department, because there should be an overall strategy for the development of East Kowloon. And then for Khao Yi Chau Artificial Island, the future South Development and Sustainable Lantau Office will be responsible for this project. Now, what is the current progress on the Khao Yi Chau Artificial Island project? What is the strategy, and what is now? Of course, FTU supports project because that will provide more land, expand our land bank. But what is the decision now? And then I mentioned the 3 urban squatter areas, Chok Yun United Villages. Well, we read about the news when these villages were replaced, were dismantled, and then there's also strong opposition from residents in the other Aochiwan village. So, how do you address all these conflicts?
Undersecretary, I'll address the questions about the squatter areas first. Well, when we decide which department would take up what kind of job, we make a few considerations. We look at the workload of our officers, and we look at whether we can create synergy by assigning the work to one office. If the 3 squatter areas can be taken up by one office, it would be more effective. As to which office should take up the job, we should look at the workload of each office. Mr. Bill Tang raised a very good question earlier. We had an internal meeting. I chaired the meeting myself. The meeting was about the clearing operations of the squatters. The member was right that we have to let people know that the clearing operation is good for society. We have to have comprehensive rehousing arrangements. The CCED, they have a communication mechanism themselves, and between departments, there should also be communication. I thank Mr. Bill Tang. We'd be happy to communicate or talk to the local residents. So this is the question about squatters. Second question. We look at the progress of different works projects in Hong Kong. We also look at our financial position. We think that we can slow down the progress of the Khao Yi Chau Artificial Islands project. We won't give a timeline now on when we will commence the project. We have put in money to carry out some studies earlier. The information we obtain from the studies, for example, about water current or geology, they won't be outdated, and the resources will not go to waste. As for new studies, we have no plans to carry out any new studies. That's the latest update on the Artificial Islands project. Next, Dr. Tan Yue-heng. Thank you, Chairman. I support this proposal. That is to recreate a time-limited post of chief engineer, and that we should merge the 2 offices. I support the proposal. I have 2 questions. First, the 6th directorate post lapsed on the 1st of April this year. 4 of the posts started in 2017, 2 of them started in 2021. The posts existed for 8 years and 4 years respectively. What important functions did these posts play? Now that you are not renewing these posts, how are you going to take over the work duties originally taken up by the 6 posts? Does that mean those jobs will not be carried out in the future? Or is it that the government made major adjustments to the sustainable development strategies? Also, for time-limited posts within the government, when they lapse, how do you redeploy the manpower? Say for these 6 posts, they lapsed on the 1st of April. Of course, I know many posts would lapse, but for these directorate officers, they're not retiring yet, but their posts have lapsed. So how do you redeploy these directorate officers? Do you let them look for jobs themselves, or do you arrange other types of work for them? There will be a lot of these talents within the government, so how do you make good use of them? Well, I'll address your questions in Cantonese. So what will we do after the post lapse? Secondly, and where will the directorate officers go? The 6 directorate officers, over the past few years, they did a lot of work. For example, on Lantau tourism and recreation development, we had the eco-recreation corridor, and also we put in money to carry out improvement works in Mui Wo and Tai O. And back then, we were carrying out some studies on the artificial islands. Now that we can redistribute the work duties, we could drop some of the posts. For example, in Lantau, we have the mountain bike trail networks. It spans some 40 kilometers, and we will make it 50 kilometers. And as mentioned, there are improvement works in Mui Wo and Tai O. Now, we've dropped these posts. Should these officers leave the government? Not necessarily. Some of them are retiring. And in other cases, we redeploy the officers. We dropped 6 directorate posts. And one is a D2 officer from the planning department. He is a town planner. And so that officer would go back to the planning department to take up planning work. So we deploy the officers to other positions depending on the number of posts we have, and we deploy manpower accordingly. I have a follow-up question. You said the officer was originally from the planning department. Well, in this case, you were not creating a new post, was that right? Back then, there were these temporary posts, and you shouldn't have asked for additional funding to create a temporary post because that officer was from another department. Well, originally there wasn't a D2 post. We had to create a D2 post. As to who will take up the post after the post was created, it really depends on the arrangement of different government departments. This is a regular practice. We have officers, we also have different posts. For some of the posts, there are time limited. For some posts, after they've lapsed, the officer will no longer be able to take up the post. Understood. So the original post at the planning department was retained, right? Well, the post was cut. Also, you deleted the post or cancelled the post at the planning department. Indeed, you did not add additional manpower, but you created a new post, right? We have what we call the strength. You're right. Say, before the 31st of March this year, we still had the planner position at the planning department. It is a D2 post. The post was cut, but the officer did not have to leave the government. Instead, the officer was deployed to work as an assistant director at the planning department. Mr. Brave Chen. Overall speaking, I support the proposal. I'd like to commend the government. With the financial strain that we face, the government is already doing very well. I see that 14 posts have been deleted. For time-limited posts, we see a drop of 6. This shows members of the public that the government has been working hard. Even with the development projects in Hong Kong, I see that you're trying to reduce manpower. We have lots of projects lining up to create value for Hong Kong. So what you're doing now is commendable. You're showing people that you have to create posts when it is needed. And also, at the same time, you are consolidating certain positions. I think you will garner people's support by doing this. I support the overall planning and development of the government. Paragraph 17 talks about the mountain bike trails in Lantau as well as the eco-recreation corridor. This is the 80th anniversary of the victory of the anti-resistance or anti-aggression war. Should you consolidate some of the projects as we celebrate the anniversary of the victory? We have trails, we have the silver mine bay in Mui Wo, and there were lots of victims during the anti-resistance war. I think you should add in all these elements in your project instead of having CSTB work on them separately. So you should look at all of these in one go. We have been talking about tourism is everywhere. There are some roads being widened in Lantau. During Easter, we had millions of people leaving Hong Kong or coming to Hong Kong. Can you relax the restrictions so that more cars could go to Lantau? We want to attract more people to go to Lantau, especially we have cars from the mainland coming down to Hong Kong. We want to attract more high-spending visitors. This may add to your workload, but at the same time, it could be more cost-effective. With the same cost, we can achieve greater benefits. I thank Mr. Chan for the questions. I thank the director for reviewing the workload so that we could drop 5 posts and just retain 1 post. I believe the director has done a lot of work on this. Secondly, well, Mr. Brave Chan asked us to add value to our work. We will think about how we can create greater value by taking up the existing projects. Thirdly, it's about the transport department's work. It's about the traffic management. After the merger, the CEDD could focus on the tourism development in South Lantau. We'll continue to communicate with the Transport Department to see if we could relax certain traffic measures so that people could go to South Lantau more easily. We'll follow up on this with the relevant departments. Mr. Shang Hailong. Thank you, Chairman. I speak in support of the streamlining of the structure within CEDD. I also support the recreation of the post. This post will be recreated for 5 years. Sometimes posts are created for 3 or 4 years. Just now, the Undersecretary said it really depends on the workload. Every government has different focus. The previous term government focused on the Kowloon project. The current term government focuses on the Northern Metropolis project. With the financial strain, well, this post will be recreated for 5 years, and this post holder will focus on the works in Mui Wo and Lantau. What will happen if these works could not be completed when the post lapses? Will you continue to extend the post? Also, how could you make sure effective coordination between government departments to ensure all the job duties listed out in the paper could be finished within 5 years? Mr. Brave Chen asked this question just now. He wanted greater effectiveness. For example, he asked you to promote tourism is everywhere. He asked you to promote places where visitors or members of the public want to go. How could you relax, for example, lease conditions? How could you take the initiative to remove these barriers? Do you have any plans?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shang, for your questions. First, about the period of the post. Now, there will be different periods for supernumerary posts. It really depends on the duties that the post holder will take up and how long it will take to complete those duties. Now, since this is not a permanent post, and we have to set a time limit, of course, and then we have to see how long it takes for the post holder to complete all the tasks. And it may be afterwards we'll say, it's good to keep the post because there will be other new tasks. So that's why we say we review the situation again after 5 years. In this case, for instance, we may still need to retain a post, and we will come back to this council for approval then. So that will allow flexibility in the mechanism. At the same time, will allow members to monitor our work. On cross-departmental coordination, we have a standing mechanism for that. For example, there is a D3 post holder that communicates with colleagues in his department, and even at the director level, there is communication. And if there is need to make a decision or to steer a certain project, then the issue could be escalated to a high level, such as the bureau level. Third, taking initiatives. Now, there may be certain rules or regulations, and that may affect the development potential of a certain district. Well, we would step in. Well, before the other director posts elapsed, the Sustainable Lantau Office was already doing one thing. Now, in South Lantau, there are certain vehicles that will require permits, and we helped to facilitate such application. There were at least 2 cases where planning approval was given. So that's exactly the role of the bureau. So that we'll continue to work in that area. In that direction, rather. Mr. Perrier. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this merger proposal makes good sense, so I will support it. Now, the post is for 5 years. I hope the work could be completed, but I doubt if that's the case because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we need to speed up progress as well. Lantau is part of an overall strategy for development. Now, I must just declare I'm a member of the board of directors of the airport authority. Now, in northern Lantau, there will be the airport city is a major development, and then Lantau South is conservation first and with some development. And then there will be this South Lantau Eco-Recreation Corridor. We went with the Undersecretary to visit the area before. Now, when I was a student in secondary school, Lantau was seen as a good place for recreation and holiday. And the Lantau was appealing to visitors too, because we have hiking trails, we have habitat, habitats, and so on. Now we are turning Lantau into an international tourism island, but it seems that government does not have enough coordination. The airport is working on its own, and in South Lantau we have different initiatives, and then we're all very much concerned about the traffic issue. Over the years, we have not seen much changes to the roads in South Lantau. Now, South Lantau Road, Tower Road, there will be improvement projects. I hope after the improvement works are done, then there will be more room for tourism development and for accommodating coach buses. I hope there will be increased road capacity to support the development of Lantau as a whole. One of the functions of the South Development Office is to provide new opportunities to Hong Kong in terms of recreation and tourism. I hope after merger, the office will continue to do that. And I hope there will be cross-bureau collaboration to plan and take forward such development. Because we're talking about overall development, so we need cross-bureau collaboration. Now coming back to the urban areas, South Development Office takes up, looks after projects in West Kowloon. Now for the West Kowloon Cultural District, when can we complete the waterfront, link up the entire waterfront promenade? If we walk to from the fire station to the M+ Museum, we are just talking about 700 meters. I did the measurement myself. And if we want to wait till the entire West Kowloon Cultural District is completed before you complete that section of the pedestrian link, I don't know how long it would take. We're talking about going from West Kowloon all the way to Ocean Terminal, and then people can go to the Clock Tower in Tsim Sha Tsui and even go to Tsim Sha Tsui East or Hong Kong in future. We're talking about this whole waterfront promenade. Can you speed up the completion of the entire promenade so all these places could be linked up? Let me take the last question first. Now we want to link up the waterfront first. That's a priority. And then the first and second point, we have an overall strategy for Lantau, development in the north and conservation in south. And that's the Lantau Development Blueprint. And then so under that major framework, then we take forward various projects. Now, it may not be a large island, but then there are so many different elements. Same as Hong Kong actually. So in the north, there's a development, and in the south, conservation. And about the north-south link, well, we take that very seriously. We need to enhance the link. That's why the CDD is conducting a study. We're seeing how we can link up with North Lantau, and can we improve the roads along the way, and Keungshan Road, Tai Road, how can we improve these roads? We are actually conducting studies. And if we have any findings this year, we'll definitely share with you as soon as possible. Now perhaps I can ask the department to answer the question on the promenade link in West Kowloon. Mr. Chen? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Member, for the question. Yes, of course, the public would like to be able to enjoy the waterfront promenade as soon as possible. But then we have actually started basement works in Area 2. We will start excavation in the middle of the year. And then we will remove the excavated materials by a sea route. So we need to build some facilities along the waterfront. So perhaps it's not safe actually for people to walk through that section now. At the same time, we want to improve the link in Austin Road West. We're going to build a covered pedestrian walkway to take people from the Austin Station to the Empress Museum. Hopefully then we could improve accessibility. Thank you. Mr. Dennis Lau. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, I welcome the department's initiative to reorganize the structure, because given the current fiscal status of the government, there's a need to reduce manpower. I support it. But now in the paper, it's mentioned that some of the time-limited posts have lapsed, and then many of the projects will be completed soon. But then in Lantau, there will be various development projects too. Now, for some of the tourist destinations or cultural or recreation facilities, they are actually not keeping up with our development. And so local residents cannot enjoy such facilities, and then we cannot bring visitors to Hong Kong. It's a painful exercise to cut staff, but I hope you won't overdo it. Because we can see there's so many projects, so you actually have a tight staffing structure to follow up on all these projects. So with the current proposal, would it lead to any difficulties? Would progress of the various projects be affected? I'm rather concerned about it. And then we are talking about posts for just 5 years. It's possible, I think, after 5 years, all the projects will not be completed, and you will come back to ask for an extension for this post. So how can you address the difficulties you face? How can you make sure that development could keep up pace? How do you improve in efficiency? So we're talking about improving, boosting efficiency, effectiveness, quantity, capacity, and so on. This is what the SL government needs to do. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. On how many posts to retain, we really gave that careful thought. We reviewed what tasks need to be handled personally by directorate officers. Because some of the projects are already underway, so maybe a non-directorate staff would be able to follow up on these projects, and a directorate officer needs not spend too much time on it. And so that's why there's room for us to redeploy manpower. So we have from 6 director posts to 1. That shows that we have taken into consideration all the projects we need to take up. For example, Lantau Island, Lemma, Island Development, South Lantau Eco Recreation Corridor. All these projects will not be affected. And of course, we need to make sure that the post holder is able to do his job, and then we also need to review what the needs are in future and what manpower we need. So there is flexibility with this arrangement. So Mr. Leung, you can rest assured we may have fewer staff members, but then the quality of our work will not be affected, and that's the principle we always go by. Next, Mr. Tang Fei. Thank you. I support the Bureau's effort to streamline its organization. I highly commend that effort. Now, paragraph 41, it says that after merger there will be new head of office and then that covers a fifth of the area of Hong Kong. So we're talking about a huge area, and then there will be a new director to lead the work, but then he will have a smaller staff. There's reduction of 12 posts. So does it mean that there will be heavy workload for this particular new office? Now, it seems that development in the north does not have priority under the current strategy. The focus is on South Lantau. Development in Lantau is totally unrelated to West Kowloon. West Kowloon is in the urban areas, but in Lantau, we're talking about tourism and conservation initiatives. Of course, there will also be some public housing projects, but still, it's very much a rural development. It's entirely different than developments in the Hong Kong Islands or the West Kowloon Cultural District. Now, we should encourage streamlining of the organization structure, but then after streamlining, this office would still cover the various different projects. It was a really heavy workload. Can it really cope? And we're not just talking about progress. If the government wants to add further development projects or enhance other projects, then maybe the staff won't be able to cope, right?
Under Secretary, the member is concerned whether we have enough manpower to take up all the work. The CEDD is responsible for site formation works and infrastructure works. If you look at the map, the size of the area may not necessarily be directly related to the development scale. Say for Hong Kong Island and the northern metropolis, the scales of development are very different. So we do not only look at the size or the area that the office is going to cover. Instead, we are looking at the role of the office and how much the CEDD has to participate in the projects. Well, are the works in different parts of Hong Kong totally unrelated? Well, we're talking about infrastructure works. Say for South Lantau, we are considering developing a boardwalk. The CEDD has been developing boardwalks on Hong Kong Island as well. These are all civil engineering works. So we can actually create synergy by merging the two offices. And when we decide on the boundaries or the areas covered by different offices, we take this into consideration. Mr. Benson, look. The CEDD is recreating a post for 5 years. I support this proposal. The CEDD is redistributing the duties and streamlining the organization. I support this as well. 5 years is a reasonable period for carrying out certain civil engineering projects. If necessary, we could review the works achieved by this post holder 5 years later. I have questions about the duties and responsibilities of this post holder. We've been talking about island tourism. And Lantau is a major part for island tourism. Tomorrow is the 1st of May. The government has done a lot of work to increase the capacity of the East Dam in Sai Kung. But we need transport facilities. We've been promoting island tourism as well as the tourism in Lantau. I want to know what the thoughts of the government are in terms of the transport capacity. I'm not talking about how many roads we can build in 10 years. We have mainland tours helping to promote certain tourist attractions on Xiaohongshu, and within a short period of time, these attractions could become very popular. Do you have any traffic measures to deal with an increase of visitors? For example, do you have plans to widen certain roads in Lantau to cope with the sudden increase of visitors? Paragraph 17 of the paper mentions about hiking trails as well as recreation facilities in Lantau. One of the goals of the project is to consolidate the different trails in Lantau so that there could be a 100-kilometer long round the Lantau hiking trail. I want to know the progress of this project. Also, hiking has been very popular in Hong Kong, especially after the release of the recent movie. Some international hikers told us that it's great to enhance the trails in Hong Kong, but they do not want too much concrete in the countryside. This may impede them from experiencing the hiking trails in Hong Kong. So what are your thoughts in enhancing the trails in Hong Kong? My thought is you should preserve the raw trails while ensuring the safety. Undersecretary, in terms of how we can design the trail so that it matches with the nature, I'll ask my colleague to supplement. We've been giving careful thought to the projects in South Lantau. We know that there will be more attraction sites and there will be more people going to Lantau. We'll talk to relevant government departments about traffic measures. As mentioned, we will improve the north-south connection. There will be hardware to make it easier for cars to go there. The good thing about South Lantau is that it is not a busy place with a lot of vehicles. It is a quiet area. Our plan is to build a pier in Chensha so that boats or ferries could go there and there could be island tours or island hopping tours. In mid-April, we started a survey. We are consulting the trade about their thoughts on South Lantau. We're consulting them whether our measures could offer help to the industry. On hiking trails, I'll ask the director to supplement. Director. On the Round Lantau Hiking Trail Network, we proposed the idea several years ago. We have a continuous hiking trail which spans 100 kilometers now. Now we are looking at upgrading certain facilities. As mentioned in paragraph 17, at Pak Kong Au we have a new public toilet. It is an environmentally friendly public toilet. We want to have more of these projects to improve the hiking experience of hikers. As to whether there will be too much concrete in the countryside, we try to use natural materials as much as possible to build hiking trails, not just in Lantau, but also in urban areas on Hong Kong Island. We have the Round the Trail project on Hong Kong Island as well. I hope this addresses the member's question. Ms. Eunice Yong. The government is recreating a time-limited post and it's merging the two offices. I support the proposal. I have questions about the Kowloon Artificial Islands project. The Undersecretary said the project would be put on hold after certain studies are completed. Back then, we approved a funding of $550 million to carry out all the environmental impact assessments. I know that last year you submitted a report to the EPD to kickstart the statutory procedures. The EPD received your report, and 60 days later they should finish reviewing the report to decide whether the statutory procedure should continue. So what is the work left to be done before it is put on hold? Last year you told the public that you already spent $140 million. If you're going to put the project on hold, why did you submit the assessment report to the EPD? It does not only involve the Development Bureau and the CEDD. It also involves the manpower of the EEB. Why did you submit the assessment if you are going to put the project on hold anyway? Shouldn't you have withdrawn the application with the EPD instead? Perhaps you could save the $150 million and use the money on other projects instead. While there are uncertainties to the project, you should not continue to waste the efforts of other government departments and bureaux. So what will the CEDD do after you've submitted the report to the EPD? It sounds like you are putting a hold on the project from what you said just now. I want to know about the manpower deployment for the Artificial Islands project. It doesn't just concern your bureau, it also involves other bureaus. If you are to kickstart the statutory procedures, it will take at least 1 to 2 years. If you're putting this on hold, are you suspending the statutory procedures as well? Undersecretary. We have other land creation projects, so we think that we should slow down the Artificial Islands project. We don't think we need to give a concrete timetable for that project. We spent money on technical studies. Those studies include environmental impact assessment, and the findings we got, they will not be outdated. Since we have already spent money on that, we will carry on with the existing studies. As said, we will not conduct any new studies. For the ongoing study, since we have already spent the money, they will be continued. As for the environmental assessment report, according to our strategy for the Artificial Islands project, well, there is room for us to slow down the project. We need to review the background information we got from the existing studies. We're working on it now, and we will leave it to the EPD to make a decision. This is what we've been working on. Chairman, I think the government has to tell the public about the progress. They say they are slowing down the project, but we have no idea what they're doing concerning the Artificial Islands project. I think the government should explain how it's making use of manpower. How much manpower is being deployed to take up the Artificial Islands project? Can manpower be reduced for that project, and then you can spare extra manpower for conservation or recreation. This paper does not mention whether you will reduce manpower for the artificial islands project. I understand that you are creating new posts for conservation and recreation initiatives. On slowing down, I mean we don't have to give a concrete timetable for commencing the works on the artificial islands. We have already spent money on certain studies, and the studies are nearing completion, so they will be continued. We originally had 6 directorate posts, and now we're only keeping 1. This is because we want to focus on promoting tourism and recreation in Lantau as well as on Lamma Island. We think that it is enough to keep the D1 post, that it is chief engineer for the work. As for the original studies that had been commenced, they will be carried on. But we will not launch any new studies. I've said this several times already. Mr. Stephen Ho. I do not object to the retention of the time-limited post. The administration has been talking about the merger, and there was mention about D2 post and D1 post, and you're only keeping 1 D1 post. I understand. So what kind of chief or what kind of engineer is the post holder? There are many projects going on in Lantau, and the government has to improve on, for example, its researches. In Mui Wo, there is a mountain bike practice ground. Do you know that there is a burial ground there? And above the burial ground, sometimes we see mountain bikes flying by. I dealt with this problem for 9 years because you did not carry out any public consultation. What could your team do to ensure the local residents could take part in the project and to make sure that their lives wouldn't be affected because of your projects? I think the chief engineer concerned or any D2 officers should look into this. Mr. Lam, just now you mentioned about coaches. And camper vans. People made use of coaches because of certain restrictions to land use. You say there are certain characteristics to coaches, but there are coaches because people tried to circumvent the rules. We ask you to remove certain barriers. That means we want you to adjust your mindset. It's not that we oppose to development. We want people to be able to enjoy the benefits from the development. That's what we want you to do in your planning, in Laofaoshan as well as in the mining site. And you're also consulting people on the marina. Well, there are oyster rafts in Laofaoshan. Did you include that in your tender documents? Developers would want to develop traditional marina clubs. Then what would happen to the oyster fishermen? We think that oysters represent part of the value of Hong Kong. They should be included. And you should include that in your tender documents. You should have more communication with the relevant parties. You should not just adopt the same old practice. Please change your mindset. Otherwise, I'll have to go to Mui Wo several times every year to deal with any disputes or problems.
Well, that's actually an opinion from Mr. Ho. Your first question is about the way you deal with your work. What kind of engineer is that? Because then it's about the mindset of the person. That's the way a person works. I don't think it's the question about the engineer, but the post really. The first and the third questions about how the government communicates with local residents or the sectors. Now, on communication with local residents, CDD has done much in the past few years, because over the years we found that civil engineering projects, of course, affect local residents. That's why we need to have good communication with them for the works to be carried out without hiccups. Now, but then Mr. Stephen Ho saw some problems there. Well, we keep in close communication, so do let us know. And when communication is good, it may not have to do with the person. This is what we call a communication gap. But it could be due to various reasons. But please rest assured, our position is that we take very seriously communication with various stakeholders, especially if our projects affect local residents. We don't want to see another incident that you mentioned. Fine. Well, in that case, please talk to us as soon as possible. And on oyster farming sector, personally, I think oyster farming is a special feature in Lau Fau Shan, and we are now conducting EOI exercises. We'd like to hear the views not just from the market, but from, say, your sector, Mr. Ho, because we want to know how we should take forward these projects. And the caravans, well, you say it's a matter of compromise. Now, we don't just look at hardware. The CDD is all more than happy to deregulate where possible. Now, if there are certain products that will support the development of South Lantau, well, we will be happy to go for deregulation. Ms. Elizabeth Court, I support merging the two offices and the redistribution of duties. In Lantau, and I think we'll be seeing quicker development. Now, but then in the whole document, I don't see any mention of low altitude economy. Now, in the policy address, there's mention of development of the low altitude economy. We want to also give play to the special character of different islands. Low altitude economy includes low altitude tourism, rescue, and so on. So that it will contribute to the development of Lantau. How come there's no mention of it? Is it that in your whole planning strategy you were not going to consider the low altitude economy in Lantau? Now, you are going to promote island hopping tourism. I don't think it can be done just by sea route. It takes a long time to build roads. There are environmental concerns as well. So, low altitude transport would supplement the traditional transport mode. It could promote aerial tourism or sightseeing, aerial sightseeing, and so on. And then people could take drones to go to different islands in Lantau, say taking them to high-end resort, and then logistics. Drones could help too, because in future, if you're going to have further development, you would need to transport materials and supplies, and do you just rely on land and sea transport? What about aerial transport? So and then you have to build infrastructure. And then there's a mention of resilience. If there is hillfire or illegal dumping of waste, and what about patrolling, conservation, and so on? Low altitude technology would be of great help. But then you need to consider it in your plans. Where are the landing points? Where are the charging facilities? How do you plan the routes and so on? But I don't see any such mention. Do you have plans for that? Thank you, Ms. Quat. Well, the Deputy Secretary has Deputy Financial Secretary has a working group, and they're doing some sandbox pilot projects. Now, for Lantau, we haven't yet started the detailed planning, and then we are doing it a new way. We will start with EOI first because we want to listen to market views. The market may tell us we need to consider these elements. So we have not started a detailed planning, and there's certainly room to incorporate different elements. And this may seem a very interesting proposal. Now, low altitude economy probably also involves amending laws, rules, and so on. But definitely, we could provide the hardware to support such development. We will keep in liaison with different bureau and departments to make sure that there won't be constraints on such development. Thank you. Now, in the policy address, it's mentioned that we will proactively develop the low-altitude economy. But then when I read various government documents on the transport and so on, there's very little mention of low-altitude economy. Maybe there's not yet enough coordination. And that's why every time I have to remind you, there's not a single word mentioned about low altitude economy in the document. You say you will leave it to the sector to put forward such proposals to you. Well, then the sector is more than happy to put forward such proposals. Thank you. Next, Dr. So Chang-Wing. Thank you, Chairman. The government wants to streamline the organization structure. No one will object these days, of course. But when in the paper, I see some inconsistency there. Now, first, the merging of the two offices that will lead to a reduction of 12 posts. Originally, there are 196 posts in the two offices. After merger, there are 184 posts. So that means there's a reduction of posts and spending. Now, in the paper, you first explain the work of the Sustainable Lantau Office, and then you also give detailed explanation of the work of the South Development Office. And then we can see that the two offices have heavy workload, and they also look after many different projects of diverse nature. And then you give justifications for the merger of the two offices. You just said briefly that some of the projects are near completion. For example, Wan Chai Bypass, the East Coast Boardwalk. So these projects are almost completed. So you don't need so many staff members. That's why it's necessary to merge the two offices. But I don't find enough justification for the merger. First, you explain that the two regional offices have heavy workload, covering many projects. And then you went on to say the Wan Chai bypass is almost completed. The East Coast Port was also completed, so there's a need for merger. But I don't think you are giving enough reasons. Mr. Tang Fei asked about the work in the urban areas and Lantau, the projects are of an entirely different nature. No, that's not what I meant. I'm just saying from the paper, I still don't see why you need to merge the two offices. And then other members asked about the Khao Yi Chau Artificial Islands project. And in your paper, you said that the work involving Khao Yi Chau is just studies. And then all along, the government has been saying that it will slow down the project, but then the various investigation, EIA, and other tasks will still be carried out. So I want the Bureau to explain to me the merger and a reduction of 12 posts. Now, you must have had strong reasons for those 12 posts, and now you're cutting the 12 posts. So how do you actually make sure that the work of this 12 posts is covered by someone else? And now we can explain that the work of directorate staff now maybe some of the works are at the initial stage, and so there's need a high-level steer, and that's why there's a need for the involvement of directorate staff. But now some projects are already underway. For example, some conservation projects in South Lantau. The projects are already underway, so it requires the involvement of non-directorate staff more, and directorate officers need not be too involved. So that's why initially we have 14 director posts. After merger, there will be a cut of 5 director posts, close to a 50% reduction. But then for non-directorate staff, it's just a reduction of about 10%. That shows that we have considered very carefully the nature of the different tasks, how many the non-director staff we need and how many of the director staff we could become less involved. So that's why we come up with this merger proposal and the staffing structure. And the artificial islands, I've explained that several times, so I'll just be very brief. Now, some of the studies, we've secured funding a few years ago. We have started those studies, so we will, of course, have to finish those studies. Because some of the findings won't become irrelevant. So that's all I'd like to say for now. Mr. Holden Chow, thank you. Now, we are going to merge the two offices to cut the staff size. That's good. The Sustainable Lantau Office, paragraph 10. There is a study to explore the feasibility of improving north-south road connections. Well, I need to ask you to make good a promise, because many years ago at the Islands District Council we've been talking about it, and still today we don't see any work done. And then the Undersecretary is well aware of another issue too. All along, members have been talking about the coastal route between Tung Chung and Tai O. You've done studies on that. But then after you've completed studies, what are the findings? At this point, well, is it worth taking forward the project? we always say Lantau is a gem for us because there's so many tourism resources and the scenery is beautiful. But then it's such a long way to go there. It's such a long ride. So you want to conserve the area. At the same time, we want to provide supporting facilities, but then nothing has changed all these years in terms of supporting facilities. I understand you need to do all the studies first, but can you tell us at this very moment what is the latest position? Thank you.
Undersecretary, on road connections in Lantau, we're enhancing the north-south connection. From the eastern part that is Mui Wall, and then in the middle part we are trying to enhance that section as well. And on the western part it covers Kunshan Road, South Lantau Road, and so on. These roads are currently quite convoluted and steep, and we want to improve the roads. From Tongchong to Tai O, well, our current plan does not cover that part. There are conservation areas along the coast. That's why we are focusing on the north-south connection. Once we have the proposal ready, we'll share it with members. So that part of the work is being taken forward in full steam. Dr. Junius Ho. Chairman, according to the paper, it seems that the merger of the two offices would lead to the reduction of manpower. The 6th directorate post lapsed in April, on the 1st of April this year. So they've dropped 6 posts and they're adding 1 back. The post will be recreated until 2030 for 5 years. Well, Dr. So has already pointed out this. You're not actually streamlining the organization. Well, the reclamation works in Tongchong are already done, and you don't have to handle the infrastructure works because you're outsourcing the works to contractors. You just have to send officers to monitor the progress of works. And during the process, you have consultants who help you monitor the progress. So the Sustainable Lantau Office as well as the South Development Office, a lot of the work have been completed or they're not the priority. Your paper lists out the work duties of the future office. The work doesn't seem very important. Also, you have 2,000 professionals under CEDD. 2/3 of them, well, are professionals, and I don't see the West Development Office how you're redistributing duties among the other development offices. How are you actually merging the work of the two offices? Why aren't you deploying someone from WDO or EDO to take up the post of the chief engineer? You have 5 offices under EDO as well as under WDO. Enclosure 11 says that there are 6 offices. I think that's too many. You shouldn't need so many offices because there isn't much for you to do on the southern part of Hong Kong, of Lantau. You didn't actually need 6 directorate officers. You should redeploy officers from EDO or WDO. There are different types of work undertaken, but you have 2,000 people within the CEDD. I don't see how the merger is effective. Are there redundant staff, for example, from the EPD? You're putting in some $500 million on South Lantau, and a lot of the works do not have to be undertaken by you. Well, I'm sorry to say that I don't see the overall picture from your paper. You have over 2,000 people under the CEDD. And how come you still need the chief engineer? And how come you cannot redeploy officers from other offices to take up the post? Undersecretary. The government has to work very closely with the relevant parties. For example, for phase 2 of the Tongchong works, we've just got the funding. Like Dr. Stephen Ho said, when we take forward a project, we have to communicate with the relevant parties. We need coordination. We need a directorate officer to take up all the work. We need the directorate officer's views. While we have outsourced certain works to other parties, we have to monitor the work progress. It looks like the works are implemented by contractors, but the government has an important role to play to monitor the works. On manpower arrangement and distribution, well, WDO as well as EDO are in charge of Yunlong, Hongshui-Kiu, Laofaoshan. These all fall under the Northern Metropolis, so they have a heavy workload. For the EDO, they're in charge of Chengquan-O. We have large-scale development projects in Area 132 and Area 137. So we've listed out the job duties of different offices. I hope it shows that we have given careful thought to it before we arrive at the decision to merge the two offices. A lot of the work has to be taken up by our own department. Other government departments may not be able to offer help. We have a very tight manpower situation within the government. So we did look at the distribution of work and the situation of the department before we make this proposal. Chairman, I just want to follow on one thing. According to the organization chart, there are headquarters, civil engineering office, and other offices. We have 2,072 officers within the CEDD. I don't see how manpower is distributed across the different offices. I see that they are merging the two offices, but across the different offices under CEDD, is there really a tight manpower situation? I don't see that. Undersecretary, I suggest that you talk to Dr. Junius Ho after the meeting about the detailed work of the CEDD. Enclosure 14 lists out the different offices under the CEDD. Of course, Dr. Ho wants to know about the details, and I'm happy to talk to Dr. Ho about this after the meeting. Last member, Mr. Lai Tong-kwok.
Thank you. I very much support the effort of the department to trim the staff. But I have some questions about personnel. There were 6 time-limited posts. There's a 1 D3, 2 D2 and 4 D1 posts in total. The posts were created in 2 batches. The first batch was for the posts up to April this year, and in the second batch there were 2 posts created in 2021. So we're talking about a long period. Now, for the D3 post, was the person promoted and the person happens to retire in April, that's why the post is now vacated? Or is it the case that all those years the person was acting in that post? This has happened to for the D2 and D1 posts. Now you are deleting 5 posts. And if those officers were acting, that means they would have to revert to their original level. So they've been acting for so long, and now you are sort of demoting them. Could it lead to any personnel issues? Well, maybe the person is about to retire, then it's not an issue. It's possible. Or maybe within the department there you have quite a number of vacancies, so it's fine if this D1 post is cut, there's another D1 post for you, so it won't be a problem. Can the Undersecretary explain that to us? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lai. Now, on the details of these posts, I'll have to ask the department to supplement as necessary. But I think it's the general practice. Now, for directorate posts, well, they won't be vacant for a long time. When posts have to be deleted, the first possibility is it so happens the post holder is about to retire. Now, the head of the South Lantau Office, Mr. Chen, it was originally Mr. Chen, now Mr. Wu is taking up the post, and maybe there are cases of retirement, and then there are fewer posts for promotion. It's possible. That's 2. Another possible scenario is someone may act for a short period of time, and then all of a sudden he has to go back to his original post. This doesn't happen often. Well, I've been a civil servant for decades. We all know sometimes there's need to act in a certain post. It's not so much about the pay, but about exposure. So if someone stops acting, civil servants will still continue to perform their duties in their original post. I would do that. We can talk to Mr. Lai if he wants more information on the details of the cases. Well, that's exactly what happens. The head of South Lantau Office, Mr. Chen, did retire on the 31st of March. So we have planned well ahead for the 6 posts. Maybe some D2 or D1 officers actually retired at the end of last year or early this year, so we kept the post vacant. We did not arrange for long-term acting in those posts. And so if the posts are deleted, then the officers could revert to their original post. That's the planning that we've done well ahead. That's the end of questions. If members do not have any other questions, I now put this item to a vote. With those in favor of item EC 2025-26-1, raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. No. I believe the majority of members voted in favor of the proposal, so the proposal is carried. Now we move on to the next vote. That is, do we recommend the Finance Committee to further discuss paper number EC 2025-26-1? Now, in accordance with paragraph 40A of the procedures of the subcommittee, I put this item to vote, that this subcommittee recommends the Finance Committee to further discuss the proposal in paper number EC 2025-26-1, the proposal that's been approved by this subcommittee. I would like to remind members, if this motion is carried, that means we recommend the Finance Committee to further discuss the item. If this item is voted down, that means we don't recommend the Finance Committee to further discuss this paper. Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. No. Those against, please raise your hands. Thank you. I believe the majority of the members voted against the motion. The motion is negative. So the subcommittee will not recommend the Finance Committee to further discuss paper number EC 2025-26-1. So that's the end of the meeting. The next meeting will be held on the 15th of May 2025, Wednesday, from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. Thank you.